It's not the move that many of you have been told was going to happen. It's not Hassan Reddick. It's not Trey Hendrickson. It's not Eric Armstead. No, it's not. But your Detroit Lions have made some moves for the roster. And these are coordinated moves as the Detroit Lions have faced a lot of injuries and IR designation for the likes of Marcus Davenport. So the Detroit Lions needed to do something for depth. And as I figured that they would do, they would reach out and find a few players that they could add to the practice squad, potentially elevate a couple of players. But that's not really what they did either. They went ahead and let go their safety, Hallett, and the kicker that they just signed in order to be able to bring in a couple of players for depth purposes. Now, the first one is a little interesting. I mean, they both are. But Fox Sports reporter Greg Auman let's see, this was just yesterday, had reported that the Detroit Lions were signing the former Tampa Bay Buccaneer edge defender and outside linebacker Cam Gill to the practice squad. Now, Cam Gill went undrafted in 2020. He did stick around with the Buccaneers for 4 seasons. Now, over the course of that time, he played in 40 games. He was primarily a special teamer, which is also key to note here with Tampa, playing in a total of 768 special team snaps, with just 184 snaps coming on defense. Now, his entire 2022 season was lost due to a Liz Frank injury suffered in the preseason. Now, that said, he had very low usage on the defense, right? But he put up 13 pressures and 2.5 sacks. Now, if my math is correct here, he put up 13 pressures on 184 snaps. So he has a pressure win rate of about 7%, and he had 2.5 sacks. And if you take that 2.5 sacks and you divide it by the 13 pressures, he's winning 19.2% of his reps when he's pressuring the quarterback, turning it into a negative play, which would be a sack, right? Or a TFL or something, right? Some sort of a negative play. Now, in 2024, Cam Gill had joined the Carolina Panthers. He suffered an ankle injury in the final preseason game this season where he had produced 2 tackles and a sack. So the guy finds a way, right? He finds a way to get to the quarterback, but he was eventually released with an injury settlement. Post that, Gill does somewhat compare to Derek Barnes, which would be the move right now that they're looking to solidify that outside linebacker position. He's 6'3", he's 240 pounds. Derek Barnes is 6 foot, 240 pounds. So he's got a little bit more height, maybe a little bit leaned out. You know, he's 3 inches taller, but the same weight. With Barnes on injured reserve right now, Gill could potentially fit as the Sam linebacker when needed. Not sure if he's going to get an opportunity to start right now, but at least the depth is there. Most of his football career, though, he's spent time on defensive edge, which is the interesting fact here. The Lions needed more depth after Marcus Davenport went down. Now, they decided to move Josh Pascal out to the outside, and 2 weeks ago, in week 4, the Detroit Lions put Pascal out there, and he had a pretty good game. I mean, for his first game playing solely at the edge position, I think PFF had him ranked somewhere around 68 overall defense for the day, which is pretty solid for someone getting their first crack. And, you know, Pascal may be a little bit oversized to play the big end position, but it worked out for the Lions. And with the myriad of roles that Cam Gill can play, this should fit nicely for the versatility factor that Brad Holmes loves and give Dan Campbell some options on game day whenever we need to bring somebody up if we're, hurried a little bit, so to speak, with some injuries. Cam Gill was a linebacker prospect, though, when he was coming out of college in 2020. And he posted a fairly good RAS score, good size, great speed, very good explosiveness, but his agility was just a little bit lagging. And I would say that that's probably the main reason why he went undrafted. But as we know, some of these undrafted players are just simply overlooked. And maybe, just maybe, people look at the wrong stats when making comparables, and it kind of shies them away from picking up a player. But his RAS score, I mean, it doesn't jump off the page like a Jack Campbell 999, but a 727 is, it's commendable. It's pretty solid. Now, before we get too ahead of ourselves with this, Mr. Augman wanted to make sure that we understand that Gill's impact is going to be mostly felt on special teams, which is exactly where we need him, because Derek Barnes, although he was in the starting role on the outside, still played every bit of the snaps on special teams, and he was a great special teams player. So for him to be able to get called up early onto this roster, that's what his role is more than likely going to have to be. He does have a ton of experience, and he fits well, very, very nicely, I should say. He fits very nicely there in that position. Now, the Lions finally made that signing official today, but then they also announced one other player that they were bringing in, and that was Al-Quadin Muhammad. And I apologize if I butchered your name, Mr. Muhammad, but he was also signed to the practice squad. Now, like I said earlier, to make room for these signings, the Lions released Eric Hallett, the safety, and Matthew McCrane, the kicker, off of the practice squad. Now, Muhammad is a little bit more interesting to me. He was a 6th-round pick by the New Orleans Saints in 2017. So you have one season of overlap here with Dan Campbell and Aaron Glenn, both with the Saints at that time. Now, Muhammad did have some stops with the Colts between 2018 and 2021, the Bears in 2022, the Colts in 23, and recently with the Cowboys in 2024. Now, during his entire 6-year NFL career, he has made 84 game appearances with 34 starts. This is why I thought that this pickup was a little bit more interesting to me, because this is somebody that has starting ability. Now, he has tallied 12 sacks, 4 forced fumbles, and 157 tackles throughout his 6 years in the NFL. However, much like Cam Gill, Muhammad is officially listed by the Lions as a linebacker, even though he also has had more of an edge rusher type role, or edge defender style of a role. At 6'3", 250 pounds, I mean, they're near identical players here, Muhammad or Gill. I mean, they're separated by a few pounds here. But he is bigger than Gill, and he looks a lot bigger than Gill. And he brings a heck of a lot more experience than what Gill does straight away. Now, that said, Gill has more experience in special teams, which could lend him to getting brought up quicker than Muhammad, whereas Muhammad has more experience playing actual defense, and that could be a bonus for him to be able to get some time here soon. So at the end of the day, the Lions signed to the practice squad edge Al-Quadin Muhammad and edge Cam Gill, both listed as linebackers. Both can be two-way players here. So again, the Brad Holmes villain on versatility strikes again, and your Detroit Lions are filling in the bottom of their roster right now with some depth pieces. And this is exactly what we expected out of Brad Holmes. Marcus Davenport went down. There wasn't a rash of signings. Matter of fact, it was nothing more than patience. And Brad Holmes is looking everywhere. He's turning over every stone. He's trying to find the right pieces to add to this team to carry us through the balance of the season. Doesn't mean that he's done yet, but do not expect a splash signing that is going to be, an exorbitant amount of draft capital as well as salary cap. It just does not fit the Brad Holmes MO. It never has. And more than likely it never will. If we suffered one more major injury to this linebacker room, or God forbid, something happens to Aiden Hutchinson, knock on wood. Oh, got the dog going. Then yes, I would expect that the Lions would probably reach and go out and target a much bigger and better option that could be available right now. But I think that's where you would see some draft capital potentially being moved off of to secure an option for the Lions. It's still early in the season. The trade deadline is several weeks away. There is a lot more time in front of this, and the Lions are doing just fine. Matter of fact, I went through some numbers this morning on the Rise and Grind morning show, and just for comparison purposes right now, your Detroit Lions have the number 2 ranked defense according to PFF with a 76.6 overall grade. And pass rush, where everyone keeps saying that we need help from, is also ranked second best with an overall 85 grade, and that is behind the Pittsburgh Steelers at a 90.3. So do we really need help on the outside of this team? Probably not. Matter of fact, I would say that we are playing the best defense that we have played in a very long time. It is the best defense that we have played since Dan Campbell has been the head coach. I would argue that portions of 2022 or the end of 2022, nobody wanted to see the Detroit Lions. That defense was flying, but we just haven't had that defense back just yet. But this year, we are seeing a revised version with the installation of DJ Reader into the center of this defense, which has been the catalyst for the success of Aiden Hutchinson so far throughout 2024. So your Detroit Lions are doing fine. They have filled in the depth for this team moving forward. Cam Gill and Al-Quadin Muhammad, welcome to the pride of the Detroit Lions. We'll see you guys in the next one. Go Lions, go win pride. Take care. Bye-bye.